Good evening, fellow patrons. In today's video, we are breaking down the Dravakar boss fight on Totenreich. Honestly, this is one of those fights that can feel overwhelming at first until you understand what the game actually wants from you. This fight is full of little mechanics, puzzle-like interactions, and attack patterns that can absolutely ruin your run if you do not know what is happening. But once you understand the flow of the fight, it becomes way more manageable. So in this guide, I'm going to walk you through the best weapons, field upgrades, gobblegums, augments, and then every phase of the fight step by step. Let's start with everyone's favorite part of all strategy guides, the weapon builds. I would highly recommend loading in with this build of the M1911. This build will allow you to clear hordes extremely quickly. With the firepower suppressor equipped, you will get a lot more drops mid-boss fight, such as frag grenades and armor plates. If you pair this with the light mend ammo mod, you will be able to sustain an HP overcharge for most of the battle. Your workhorse damaging Dravakar himself should be the MP40. This goes crazy with its ultra rarity. From my experience, it's relatively easy to get from the box. My top recommendation for your primary is the Voyik KT3. It is, in my opinion, one of the best assault rifles in the game right now. Great mobility, great damage, and it just feels reliable in a boss fight where you need to move constantly. Other really strong options to round out your loadout are the Sokol rifle and the ray gun. The Sokol is extremely mobile and you essentially never have to reload it with the belt-fed mag. Make sure the ray gun is in the second slot so that way you can use it to activate equivalent exchange if necessary. Here is all of the augments I ran during my match. I would highly recommend going in with Dying Wish equipped first for your first attempt. Get a warm-up game in first and then switch to Dying Wish once you feel warmed up. I would recommend Ether Shroud for phase 1 of the fight. If you can refrain yourself from using your death machine, I would recommend doing so. I do think the death machine is the best choice in terms of what score streak you should load in with, so disregard my war machine that you see equipped. All you really need to focus on is blasting the MP40 into the red critical zones of the boss. This phase is a bit stressful at first, but after some practice, it becomes a lot easier to run and gun with the MP40 and inflict enough damage to spare yourself from using a score streak. There are 4 red critical spots that show up during this phase. Use Ether Shroud if you find yourself not dealing enough damage to any of the 4 spots. The second phase, in my opinion, is by far the trickiest out of the 3. I am very bad at accurately throwing grenades or aiming the Wonder Weapon's charge shot, so this is always the most difficult phase for me. The biggest tip I can give you is for this second phase is to take your sweet time. The super sprinters stop spawning in for this phase. Spam the M1911s for armor plates, grenades, and HP overcharges. I initially thought you had to time the grenade explosion to where it explodes right when it lands in the mouth of the frozen head. However, all that matters is your accuracy. I would not get too close to the heads because they will fire pillars of ice from the ground, which will tear your armor to shreds. Once you properly land a grenade or charge Wonder Weapon shot, the heads will become vulnerable to shoot. The M1911s and the MP40 can eliminate all the health of one head if you are accurate and expending a full clip. After you defeat the heads, you need to watch your mini-map to see where the frozen zones will be. Once that is determined, run to the unfrozen side of the map. Unload as many MP40 rounds as possible, but don't get too greedy. Make sure to stay behind cover. I recommend stims in this fight specifically for this part of the fight and the last phase. In the second phase, it is easy to get caught up in a frozen part of the map. The stims will come in clutch when you can't move and you're being blasted by boulders. These intermission rounds after you defeat a frozen head are extremely dangerous. That is why you should switch to Frenzied Guard and make sure that you have a full charge heading into each intermission period. The boulders can erase your armor in seconds. For gobblegums, my go-to setup is shields up, full power, and raindrops. I like to pop my shields up sometime during the second phase. The longer you hold off on popping this gum, the better off you'll be. Then I typically pop raindrops during one of the intermission periods when I am low on armor. I then try to save the full power for the very last phase. Phase 3 is where everything gets more intense. After you damage Dravakar's face, you get a free max ammo, which is very nice because this final stretch can eat through your resources fast. This is also where Frenzied Guard really starts carrying. The rune attacks return here, but they hit harder and demand cleaner movement. Here is how I handle them. Against the V patterns, strafe left and right. Against the S patterns, stay mostly still at first because they lock onto your position and then strike. Against the N or H style rune, stay mobile because it is more random. Use corners and cover whenever you need to reset. This phase is really about composure. Do not just panic sprint in circles, read the rune, react properly, and then go back to applying pressure. and that is my consistent strategy for beating Dravakar. It's really not that difficult if you implement this strategy. I will be jumping right into the hardcore version of this fight, so please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll see you in the next one. JJet out.